Oh, now I just let them cry and let's all be apart. Well, let me tell you something about me you may not know. I am not quick-witted. I really appreciate people who are. It's scary to be in an argument with someone who's quick-witted. They will destroy you. Some of the most quick-witted people I know are of the female gender. And I could have used it. I could have used that a lot in my career. And I failed in that regard. People would say things to me in a law enforcement setting, and then I would think on that. Usually the only thing I could do was give an SOP response, right? A standard operating procedure response. That's all I could do at the moment. But then I would dwell on that, and I would think about that. And it would take me about 5 to 7 days. And then I would come up with the perfect response. That person had probably already bailed out and was living their life. I'll bring it to Trundy and say, oh yeah? A week later, and she says, that fight's well over. You've already lost that one, Jim. Takes me about a week. And it takes me that long to come up with what I wanted to talk to y'all about in regards to the new year. People have pretty well stopped now saying Happy New Year, or we'll make this a good year. 23 will be a good year. I've been thinking about what to say to y'all, and a couple of weeks ago we talked about our group being together in an ark, all together in one boat. We're embodied that way. It's the way God designed it. That a person who has decided to submit their life in faithful obedience to God is baptized into the death, burial, and resurrection of his Son, and is added to the church. Not by man. There is no human centralized force or group that adds you to the body of Christ. God does that. And we reference that as the church universal. But we are the ecclesia that has gathered together here, what we call locally. This is our congregation. And so I wanted to put forth this idea, and as I typed into Google that idea for an image, because I wanted to start with that, this came up. Okay, that's our little boat, that's us. And this came up. You are the hero of your own story. Joseph Campbell. I don't know who Joseph Campbell is. I don't care. But I was bothered by this idea that you're the hero of your own story. And I've heard it other places. It's becoming this platitude that you'll hear from podcasters and media people. Be the hero of your story. This one was on the screen. If you are not the hero of your own story, then you're missing the whole point of your humanity. Really? And then I thought, this sounds like a humanist type of viewpoint, really. I mean, if I'm not the hero my life is just meaningless? The whole point of your humanity. Now, I don't take it from you that you're the lead character in your story. It's your story. Your decisions. Be they good or evil, you pay the consequences. You're the lead. I get that. I like this guy. He's arms opened, ready for enlightenment. What positive thing? Be the hero of your own story, because you're already the villain in someone else's.
It's all about perspective.
Ain't it?
Perception.
Heroes and villains. Every time I sin, I'm a villain. I may be harming your story. I'm the worst villain when I live like that in my own life. I think to myself, if you were to do a post-game interview to Peter, James, and John, or you're to put the microphone in Paul's face and say, are you the hero of your own story? I will bet you dollars to donuts they're going to say, Jesus Christ is the hero in my story. Jesus Christ is the hero in your story, and Jesus Christ is the hero for all history. The hero in your own story. I'll also never have a career in marketing. It's another thing I'm not real good at. You know, these people who can put a quirky little saying on a t-shirt and it actually impacts you and you go, wow, that's life altering. That's an amazing t-shirt. This is the best I could come up with. This is my version. This would take the front and the back of your shirt. Be a follower. Seek wisdom. Act brave. Sacrifice appropriately. It's your life. It doesn't fit. The font would be too small. Right? It's not quirky. This is the closest I can find, and I really love this out of Romans chapter 15. As far as what a hero, this is what we want for you to be. You who are strong ought, now there's judgment there. You need to do this. It's a either or type. You ought to bear with the failings of the weak, not to please yourselves. Let each of us please his neighbor for his good. Why? To build him up. We're in this boat. And I don't need you to do anything but to help build me up. And that's what I need to be doing for you. For Christ. He's the hero. And he's the one that you need to emulate. For Christ did not please himself. We just talked about the sacrifice he made. Not pleasing to him. Pleasing to God, but not pleasing to Christ. For the reproaches, that's me, for the reproaches of those who reproached thee, O God, fell on me. So let's have this ideal. We've got a leader, and you need to follow. And you need to do so with the right type of mindset. Because he has set the ideal. That which is at the top has been set for us. And that we are to emulate and to follow after. And that's really what the Bible is. The Bible is a collection of stories of people who have sought to follow after God, calling them out to do His will. I want to go back 1 second, and I want to tell you, you've known how it is to have a real leader in your life. When I started with the sheriff's office, I started by working in the jail. Young, 21, 22-year-old, working in the jail. It's an interesting setting. But we would have crisis situations that would come up. And you would think of these as being just silly. But it really was a matter of losing control. Riots happen at all different levels when you lock people up, especially when you lock up a bunch of men who just happen to be criminals. And so I can recall a time where, now this is a jail that was an old iron bars, iron doors, not modern, not controlled by computers setting. And we had to walk past on a catwalk, and we had to say, hey, 10 o'clock, it's time to turn off the TV. And someone on the other side says, nope. You want us to do that? Come take it. So now the challenge is out as to who's in control of this facility. And there's going to be violence. We're not armed with any type of weaponry. We're not carrying mace. We're not carrying tasers. This is a matter of our group going in there and pulling the TV. Now, this jail cell, big steel door, thick, big key. Step into a vestibule and you can go right into the sleeping quarters, and you can go left into the day room. That's where the TV is. Anyone who didn't want to participate in this violent act, we would tell them, get over into the sleeping quarters. We would roll down the door. We had a big crank. Crank it, slides shut, ka-chung. Cuts off anybody who's not going to. Now we have about 15 guys in the day room side. They're ready to go to the mats over this TV set. Now you would have to go to your corporal and you would have to tell him what you're going to do. And the corporal would tell the sergeant, and the sergeant would tell the lieutenant. We had a certain lieutenant, Lieutenant Fitz. People loved him. Because Lieutenant Fitz would come down and he would say to the deputy, give me the key. Now, I used to look at him and think, gee, he's old. He had silver hair. He's in his mid-40s. I'm 21. But this situation calls for a leader. And Lieutenant Fitz would take that key from you, and you would have about 5 guys and the lieutenant. And he was the first through the door. You understand? He didn't have to do that. I had other supervisors over the years, wouldn't dream of it. But that's what we want in a leader, is somebody who's willing to get into the trench with us, right? Who's willing to sling and go to it. someone who's embodying and showing you the way. We say Christ left heaven and he came down here to show us the Father. This is the trenches. This is where you live, right? Let's look at some of these ways God calls people out. You know this story. God comes to Noah. We just talked about this. And God says, I'm done with these people. Every intent of their heart is on evil continually. I will destroy them. You need to prepare. And that spends the next how long? How long? 100 years, Trinity says. We had this little discussion whether it was 100 years or 120 years. Noah spends a long time preparing. Why? Because he's going to meet the judgment of God. He knows that. God tells him what to do, but he has to make the decision to prepare. That's what a hero does, right? They prepare. It takes wisdom to prepare. It's not easy. We've been preparing our house for some work. Look at the leader for us. 1 Peter, verse 19. With the precious blood of Christ, like that of a lamb without blemish or spot, he was chosen. He was predestined. He was prepared. What was he prepared? When? He was prepared from the foundation of the world. You know, there's this idea that Jesus came to earth and he was going to be a leader. But the people said, no, we don't want anything to do with that. And so now he has to change plans midstream and he's sacrificed. That's not how that went down. Christ was prepared before the foundation of the earth. You know what that means?
Before creation.
Before creation. The three of them had to talk. And they said, we're going to create humans. You think that's a good idea? Yeah, I do. I don't know. Guess what? You're going to fall in love with them. Really? Yes, you will. Well, what do we require of them? They're going to have to be holy because we're holy. But what if they sin? One of us is going to have to die. Can you hear that conversation? If it happened before creation, then it took place like that. And the one called the Son said, I'll do it. I'll do it.
It's almost like we're going to tell them how to live.
And they're not.
Then we're going to show them how to live.
And they're going to fail.
We're going to tell them how to live, and they're going to fail, and then we're going to show them how to live.
That's right.
They're still going to fail, but we're going to give them that grace and mercy.
And the sacrifice.
Through the sacrifice. Exactly right.
That's exactly right. It was done before the foundation of the world. It was done. How about for you, follower? For we are his workmanship. You're God's. God is the potter, right? You're the clay. You're his workmanship. Created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand. You were predestined to behave the way You were supposed to behave. That's what was chosen. Those good works. You can say, they said, how do we want them to behave? We want them to love each other. We want them to forgive each other. We want them to be kind to each other. You can now just fill in the fruits of the Spirit. Those are the things they decided before they ever even said, let there be light. They decided this. That we should walk in them. Why? Why do we need to be prepared by these good works? You're going to have to help me out. Monday night, young man suited up to play football. And he surely didn't think he was going to die that night. Furthest thing from his mind. Name skipping out on me. Damar Hamlin. Damar Hamlin. Young, in shape, plays in the NFL. Safety or a linebacker? Safety. Makes a tackle and drops dead. Talked to Julie and Wayne about this the other night over dinner. Wayne says, he's dead. He drops, he's graveyard dead. His heart done. Was he prepared? Did he expect it? Thank God, right? They were there doing CPR, getting him in the ambulance. Decent guy from all accounts. And he's doing better. You are appointed to die. You're not getting away from that. You're a fool if you think otherwise. And after that comes the judgment. Man, when God calls, it's rarely a good call. He was set. Abram was set. He had wealth. He had family. He had a business. He was set in the society and a pretty stable government. And one day God says, go. Go. Then what happens? Oh my word. He's fighting battles. He's under Pharaoh and he's lying. He's losing his wife. He's getting her back. He's going through all types of famine. Look. Pretty heavy stuff. To be a hero, to be called out of a life of luxury. Is it for you? Was it for Jesus? Doesn't get much better than heaven, folks. Doesn't get much better. For I have come down from heaven not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me. He was called out to leave and to go. You have been too. But why? What did he have to leave? Christ, who was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped, but he emptied himself. He left that luxury and he took on the form of a servant. He was born in the likeness of you and I. He was found as a human to be humbled himself, and he became obedient unto death. It was appointed there also, and it was death on a cross. How about you and I? Easier? You think it's easy to be from a chosen race? What does Israel mean? Those who wrestle with God. When your name means that you are struggling with God, do you think that's going to be easy? You're chosen. A royal priesthood. A holy nation. God's own people. That you may declare the wonderful deeds of him who called you out of darkness and into the light. Do you see how Christ was called out of the light and into the darkness? And you're called from the darkness to go into the light. It's easy to live in darkness, right? People who want to sin, where do they go? To the darkness. In the light, everything's exposed. Every act is exposed. One more. Because not everybody answers that call the same, do they? What did God call from Cain? Make an appropriate sacrifice. Was it? No. And God says, why is your countenance fallen? The devil's at the door, ready to devour you, and you murder your brother. Jim was telling us what Christ did was the appropriate sacrifice. Are we thinking along the same? You had no idea. I'm sitting there and like, this guy's looked at my notes. Look. Thou hast neither desired nor taken pleasure in sacrifices and offerings, burnt offerings, sin offerings. Those are offered according to the law. Lo, I have come to do thy will. He abolishes the first in order to establish the second. And by that will we have been sanctified through the offering of the body of Jesus Christ once and for all. It was appropriate for you and I. It was an appropriate sacrifice to the Father, his life. He's the leader in that. So how do you follow this? How do you follow this? Another favorite passage of yours. I appeal to you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, present your bodies as a living sacrifice. What is appropriate for you to do? Your whole life is a sacrifice. It is your worship. Present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. We did the invitation at the beginning. But I will tell you, when you find yourself in need of forgiveness, when you find yourself in need of a faithful, obedient life to the Father, then you step out and you submit to that baptism. And you put on the body of Christ. And you walk after him. Let Jesus be the hero and you be that follower. Because it is your story. God doesn't force anybody to do anything. He calls out, and then you have to respond one way or the other. But I'm telling you, you better use wisdom. You better be of strong heart. All right? And you better be willing to sacrifice what is needed. All right, guys. It's been good to be with you.